Ashgabat, otherwise known as the White City. So apparently it's changed a lot since I first heard about it. Independence Monument, Turkmenbashi, the Syringe. It's the world's largest indoor Ferris wheel, the Parthian Fortress. Apparently this really annoyed Muslims both in Turkmenistan and across the world. Doggos are great, and unbelievably, it's cosmopolitan and less fearful of being watched. We've now transported from Ashgabat to the coast of the Caspian. Turkmenbashi, yes, it's named after Niazov, so what do you expect? It's a surprisingly chill coastal town, but it isn't as flashy as Ashgabat, as I later come to realise on my trip, but many more Soviet residential architecture. Turkmenistan is a place of contrasts. This was definitely more of a relaxed side of the country, but it also isn't as affluent as the capital. There's a bit of soul here, which, in spite of the amazing tour I had yesterday, I thought Ashgabat lacked. Ashgabat was also incredibly quiet. Also, Turkmenistan has a nationwide rail network, so you could have got a train here. Turkmenbashi is mostly known as a port city, where it exports a lot of freight from here, as well as the main natural resource, gas. It also does a lot of trade between here and Azerbaijan, which is directly across from us. After a lovely drive through the city, we head out towards the desert and townships. Just FYI, my GoPro is doing a solid job here. The roads, or lack of them, are terrible, and this was me trying to hold my own camera up just to show you how bumpy this road was. After a 3-hour bumpy ride, the landscape changes a few times before we reach an open desert, which is one of the most spectacular landscapes on this planet. Another hour and a half later, we arrive at the viewpoint, which was the main reason why I wanted to visit Turkmenistan. I should apologise that these photos and videos don't do this justice, purely because it cannot, no matter how good you are at photography. This isn't just any canyon you'll ever see. We're not talking about Yellowstone here. This is one of the rarest geological phenomenons in the world, as it's a sea erosional canyon. This used to be the Tethus Sea, or according to some people, the Tethus Ocean, which was a large body of water that dried up during the Messinian water crisis, which happened over 6 million years ago. It left this enormous dried up lake bed that gives this unbelievable backdrop. Today, the Caspian and the Black Seas are just some of the remaining seas of the Tethys, and if you're lucky, you may also find shark teeth or other fossilised sea mammals along this cliff top. I'm allowing you to absorb this as best as you can on screen, but seeing this in real life was indescribable. This was a breathtaking moment. If you're watching this and if you've been here, you genuinely don't know how lucky you are. After a good few hours at sea level, we headed back under the water for another 3-hour drive, where we passed through a couple of townships. And as the day became the night, we re-entered civilization. This is our stop for the night, the humble town of Balkanabat, and again, I was able to wander about by myself, with no problems at all, even going to a shop to pick up a weirdly Russian snack kit, and to pick up a beer. Zip is a local beer brewed in Ashgabat, and this is my abode for the evening. the Nebitçi Hotel. Yep, it's definitely called that. Let me show you how this is very different to Ashgabat. Anyway, I have to say that I've been incredibly lucky to have been able to see the Yangikala Canyon. It's only the second day, and while it's been exhausting, it's been exciting. I think you definitely have to venture out of Ashgabat to see the country outside of it. But for now, I'm off to sleep. Blue car. So it's the following morning in Balkanabat, otherwise known as Neftedag, meaning oil mountain. The reason for this is because there were oil deposits nearby, and a lot of workers live here. Balkanabat is actually economically important as it's the backbone of Turkmenistan's GDP, which is mostly natural gas. The architecture is very Soviet. These buildings are called kvartals, which is a medieval Latin word for quarters. Our stay in Balkanabat is short, and we now head out back towards Ashgabat, a 430km, nearly 5-hour trek through Turkmenistan's desolate countryside, where it started to rain. Anyway, it's not as if I'm in Spain and I'd be complaining about getting my money back. I just sat back and enjoyed this very nice view. We stopped momentarily to stock up on refreshments in a nearby town called Bereket. But just FYI, watch how much water you're drinking and do take hand sanitizer and tissues. The toilet situation out in the country is inexperienced. As we set off again, we passed by a small town with a peculiar backstory. So we know about Alexander the Great, right? So since he was involved with the opening of the Silk Road, a route that passes through Turkmenistan, apparently there are arguments to say as to whether he did pass through Turkmenistan or indeed conquered Turkmenistan during the 4th century BC. But there's a town on this route, which is towards the west of the country, that is apparently dedicated to him, and it's called Isgander, or Isgander, whatever they locally call it. This is the sign, and that's apparently why. As we re-enter the Akhal region, we took a pit stop to observe one of Turkmenistan's most celebrated foods, the melon. Yep, they love it so much there's even a holiday for this. And yeah, they are really good. There's no propaganda about this. This is genuinely really good. Turkmenistan seems to have these odd bits dotted around in the countryside, but there's more historical significance around this area. We stop off at a town called Gökdepe, or Gökdepe, to see this very Soviet view, but also to hide behind this. We're currently standing on a massive wall that would have been the former Gökdepe fortress, which staged a massive battle here in 1881. This was against the Russian Empire, who tried to take over the Tekke tribe. It was the last piece of a puzzle for the whole empirical rule of Central Asia. After the battle, they would later go on to take over Ashgabat, therefore renaming the city Polturutsk. To commemorate those who died here, this mosque was constructed. The battle is considered a national day of mourning to those who died during the conflict. There is a museum here, which actually has some of the original weapons and artifacts from the conflict, but it was closed today. But outside, as we headed towards our next destination, we see the actual remains of the fortress, which was left as it was following the conflict. On to a lighter note, we stopped by a stables. Not just any stables, a world champion stables. This is where I got the opportunity to see an Akhal Tekke horse, a unique breed of horse only in Turkmenistan. They're kind of based on the Arabian horses, but they have this sheen on their fur that almost looks metallic. Also, it's worth noting that you can't export any of these outside of the country. They're only ever given as diplomatic gifts. For example, I'm pretty sure Queen Elizabeth has one, or did. I didn't take a lot of videos here, only because the horses came and went, but another 20 minutes later, we're back in Ashgabat, during rush hour. Yeah, people say that Ashgabat is really quiet and empty, just show them this. Since we arrived back around mid-afternoon, I decided to exercise my liberties and went out on an adventure, like I always do with new places. Now this was on my list of things to see. This bizarre statue of the Ruhnama. Yep, remember in the previous episode where we had a controversial mosque that equaled the Ruhnama in the Quran? This is so revered, it has its own statue. Well, having said that, there are Quran statues across the world. But look, the Ruhnama. This is a proper work of art. Look at the definition on the pages. This thing opens at 6 p.m. every night, reading out passages from the book. It literally opens like a book. We are definitely back in Ashgabat now. But upon reflection, I think that after being in towns and cities outside of Ashgabat, you can tell that it's completely different and somewhat imbalanced. There's so much power present in Ashgabat, everything's clean and it has its own unique character. But not in the same way as Turkmenbashi and Balkanabat. Ashgabat is a strong example of how a place should look if you want to impress visitors. But then, I kind of understand the question that every YouTuber and reporter has of here. Where are the people? The thing is, Ashgabat is built like a global city. It's big, it's wide, they have boulevards instead of streets, but there's more of that in real estate than there are people. So the reason why it's quiet is because there isn't enough citizens on the street or people living there to actually take up all of that space. And the 15,000 visitors a year are definitely not going to fill that up. You can imagine, however, if it did attract a mass tourism industry, this might be a bit fuller. But it isn't. But once upon a time, the world did descend onto Ashgabat back in 2017. It hosted an unusual Olympic competition called the Asian Indoor and Martial Arts Games. It became a defining moment for Turkmenistan as it firmly put it on the world map, and even in documentaries. They built an Olympic park just for the occasion, but it's now only used by schools and clubs. The public aren't allowed in, but it's also complete with a monorail system to transport athletes from their marble-cladded accommodation. Unsurprisingly, because of COVID, Turkmenistan were the last hosts of the games. The next one is to be in 2026 in Saudi Arabia. Who'd have thought that? Oh, and guess what? See that horse's head? It's got a Guinness World Record for, hang on a minute, the world's biggest horse's head on a stadium. But along from the pristine buildings in the stadiums, we get a taste of the architecture and the community of where I just experienced in Balkanabat. I stumble across what appears to be a Soviet-style community, with architecture to match. Ashgabat is a city that seems to be split in two. There's a newer part, which appears empty, but then there's an older part where you see people wander about doing their business. I think having the liberation to walk about on your own does allow you to explore these parts of the city, while everybody else might not want you to see it. But I went down there, but while respecting the local community. I tried my best to not get anybody in these videos or photographs. And that's another reason why all videos and pictures look empty. It's not just the world records and the marble buildings that I came to see. The people make up the culture of a place, and I've been fortunate to be able to see them. I understand that Turkmenistan is highly surveilled and everything is watched. Turkmenistan has its own set of principles, but also its own set of problems. The contrast in societies here is one of them. The country is vast, and they utilise a lot of that wealth to the capital. They would probably invest more in Balkanabat and Turkmenbashi if they wanted more people to visit there, as clearly the investment would benefit the local population of these towns compared to those living in Ashgabat. As a tourist, however, it is a long journey, but it's definitely worth the excursion, just to see this place from another angle.